Well, hello again. This is Denny Johnson here, and this is about the rayid iris. This has really been an introduction to the overall principle, not only of the iris, but of the family tree, the birth orders, and also the therapies. So we're going to go more into the therapeutic function, some of the things that we recommend. But let's just review a little bit. The constitution of the iris is an excellent instrument to see the template of how each person is manifesting in the world. And that means the constitutional framework, the individual different styles of presentation. If they have the open web type, it's primarily emotionally reactive, capable, creative type. If they have the brown dots, it's primarily verbal, thinking, seeking type. And everyone has all of these. Everyone has the flower emotion. Everyone has the jewel analytical function. It's just to what degree do they process using it? Because there's always these opposites involved. Now, you can have any combination of this, but really what we're looking at is how does it all fit together? These are also like four wheels on a car. The front two, the jewel and the flower, are actually supported by the other two. The density, which means the straightness of the stroma or the fibers of the iris, this is the representation of a kinesthetic type. I call it the stream because it's a connective type. Those who have a higher density usually like safety or security. They like being together. They like the sense of touch. Their primary language of communication is through the body, and oftentimes it's about touch. The fourth one is called the shaker. It's a combination of these two. It has a flower and a jewel in the same eye, and this is sometimes the dynamically driven type, the body movement type. These two, the movement type and the kinesthetic type, are typically in relationship. Now, everybody has all four of these different drivers moving. So which one do you lead with? Do you lead with the emotional type, and then you're balanced by more kinesthetic type? Are you leading with the emotional type and you're accelerated by more of the driver type? There's all these different variations. You can do a combo that goes from here, the flower and the shaker. You can do a combo that goes from the flower to the stream. You can do any combo you want. But eventually this comes down to, okay, so what do you do with this type? These four different types are also different types of therapies. All of us need movement. All of us need body awareness through nutrition. This is primarily the basic food type. This is the exercise type. This is the thinking and the reading type. This is the artistic or the emotional type. All of these four, they correspond to combinations that make up 12 different combinations. These 12 different combinations of these four, they make up the 12 different glands, organs, body systems, meridians, and so on and so on and so on. You'll have many different types. But if you would also consider it another way, you're talking about summer, autumn, winter, and spring. You have different seasons in here. You have sunrise, you have sunset. You have all the different times of the day here. So what we've learned about this is that you can use also the cycles and seasons. And when it comes to nutrition, you'll have different foods that come in different times. The apples come in one season, and then the mangoes are another season, and so on and so on. We have all these different seasons of nutrition. There's also seasons of maturation. We'll have childhood, which is one rate of growth. We have teenagers, we have young adults, we have middle age, we have older people. All of these are stages and cycles. What I really look for is I look for templates. I'm always looking for the template. Why look for the template? Because I want to identify the template and, if you will, support that template, support it by acknowledgement. For example, if I see the analytical thinking type, support their ability and their desire to want to research, learn, read, understand, or explain. Support that constitution. If I see the kinesthetic stream type, I like to support their desire for safety, security, firmness, and they have something else to offer the other ones. If I see somebody who's a shaker type, I like to identify their positive attributes and then use the other ones as a system of support. Everything works together as a unit. There's no way you can be any one of these constitutional types without needing the other ones to be mobilized. In fact, in my opinion, you'll be far healthier if you do all four all the time. Not an easy thing to do, to have a feeling-oriented existence and be continuously aware about your physical body, your changes and your actions, to be aware of your gestures and your postures and your thoughts and your emotions all at the same time. This is really where it moves. So the therapies have to do with engaging more and more of all the different opposites. Now, in reality, I start with the kinesthetic first. Even though I'm looking for the template of jewel and flower all the time, when I go to a therapeutic function, my first responsibility is to keep them alive. Somebody who's on the verge of a heart attack, or somebody who's very sick, somebody who's really not feeling well, I usually send them off to a doctor or a good naturopath to find out what's going on in their body. Take care of the physical body. Take care of the physical body first. If they're bleeding, don't give them a lecture about feelings. Take care of the bleeding. If there's a need physically, take care of the physical body. Educate them about their diet and their need for rest, which is a physical body requirement function. This is an important part. Now, if you're not sure, there's plenty of online information about being vegan or vegetarian, or be a healthy carnivore in some way or another. There's all kinds of information about diet. You see diet everywhere, all these different names of diet. You can give them information about diet. But some people, their basic attitude is, my diet's fine. And they said, I checked the health function, they look okay, they feel okay, they're not asking for something about their physical body health. Now I start to identify what it is that they really want to do. So I have a tendency at times to ask them, what's the most important thing in your life? What do you do all the time? Oh, it's my family. I'm always busy cooking for or taking care of my family. So then I'm looking at how to help them take care of their family better, because I want to use their interest to be able to guide them to something new. So if someone says, I want to have a healthier family, I go, well, did you know that your family is going to be most happy when you're actually taking care of yourself first? You take care of your physical body, you get your rest, you get your exercise, you study what you want to study, and you show your own family and children the importance of living a life as an individual. That's going to help your family the most. Then later on, you might want to examine what it means to really look at your family tree. Now, for me, one of the primary therapies of the entire family tree function is to take a look at the 12 grandparents, the great-grandparents, there are 8 of those, and then the grandparents, there are 4 of those, to really look at those 12 Because for me, those 12 also represent a natural therapy. So sometimes I go, okay, so you want to grow and develop your family, but tell me, on a scale from 1 to 100, how much do you know and love your mother's mother's mother? On a scale from 1 to 100, how much do you know and feel or love your mother's mother's mother? And they go, wait, I don't know anything about her. I never met her, never heard anything about her. So I would have to say it's 0. I said, no, if it were 0, you'd be dead. Because mother's mother's mother represents a heart function. Now, if you want to change your emotional health and change the health of your own children, then recognize that the things that you're doing right now, they're being transmitted to your grandchildren and great-grandchildren, even if they're not yet conceived. So your personal attitudes or feelings about your mother's mother's mother will change not only yourself, but change your family for 3 more generations. Now that may sound strange, but I'm saying if you spend time with your mother's mother's mother, by that I mean you can do research. You can ask your mother, did you know your grandmother? And if your grandmother's still alive, tell me about your relationship to your mother. And oh, by the way, don't expect grandparents to tell you the truth. Most of the time they don't. What I mean by that is, if you ask your grandmother, your mother's mother, about her mother, called grandmother number 4, mother's mother's mother, she'll sometimes say, oh, no, everything's fine. No, everything's good. It's all done. No, she's dead. Oftentimes it means I don't want to tell you how I really felt. And one of the things you can do for your family health the most, tell the truth. If your great-grandmother was an alcoholic and a prostitute, tell the truth. If she was a mass murderer, tell the truth. That's the best thing you can do, no matter what it was. But you can be honest by saying, look, I don't know my mother's mother's mother. And I said, well, how are you about going to bed in the evening? Because what we know of mother's mother's mother corresponds to bedtime. I know that's odd, but the ability to be able to go to sleep at night, which is typically for most people between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m., that corresponds to changing from being vertical to being horizontal. Sometimes that means taking a bath and going to bed. That's a very significant time. So examine how you are at that time of the evening. If you have a tendency to not go to bed until 10 or 11 o'clock at night, you're missing the value of that grandmother. I mean, literally, you're slowly killing yourself and your family by not paying attention to that great grandmother. This is just one. So mother's mother's mother, bedtime, the ability to be able to change, let go, receive love, metamorphosis, that has all kinds of things. So what I just did with you is a therapy. I know it's odd, but talking to someone about mother's mother's mother takes their attention there. So if I'm saying, do you know your mother's mother's mother? I just said it to you. I took your attention there. So whether you know it or not, just slightly, your feelings were accessed and started to mobilize. So I'm saying, could you compare your great-grandmother to an ocean? They go, my great-grandmother never lived anywhere near an ocean. How would you do that? Well, why would you do that? then you find out that each one of the iris patterns and each one of the birth order positions, like the number 4 grandmother, has to do with symbols in nature. The symbol in nature that corresponds to mother's mother is ocean. The ability to be able to receive all the rivers. What rivers? Rivers on earth? Well, no, but the symbology is all the rivers of the capillaries and veins and arteries, they all connect to one great circulation. It's called the left side of the heart. That's mother's mother. Now you've just had a little bit of a lesson about the time of the day and the heart and mother's mother. You opened up one part of your capacity to feel, understand, mobilize something in the body. We talked about the physical heart, and also to begin the process of change. I just took you through all the different iris constitutions about one birth order position. Now remember, there are 11 more. So if I say to you, on a scale from 1 to 100, how much do you know your father's father? Which, by the way, just happens to be the opposite of mother's mother. So father's father corresponds to a completely different part of the family tree, a completely different part of the brain, the body, the nervous system, glands, organs. So you tell me for yourself, how well do you know your father's father? And you say, no, I'm very little, but I heard he was a terrible man. My father hated his father, and I'm pretty sure that the great-grandfather abandoned my... Now you have a collection of memories. And without knowing it, those memories have been crystallized in your epigenetic flow. Yeah, I know that's odd. Yes, it's scientifically valid that stress, emotional stress in father's father is coded in little crystals, protein tags, that tag along with the DNA and come down to you. So if I'm saying to you, on a scale from 1 to 100, how much do you love number 4, your father's father? And you go, no, he's terrible. You just sabotaged your own health. Did you get that? If you're going to believe the memories that your father said about his own grandfather, it may be true that he did terrible things. But did you know in that same location are natural attributes available inside you? So there are skill sets inside of father's father, a different skill set inside of mother's mother. One represents the yin of the heart to receive. The other one represents the yang of the heart to send or to give. The two of them work together. Now, this is a therapeutic experience. So if someone said to me, my family, but they hate their great-grandfather or they don't know their great-grandmother, they're not really helping their family. Without realizing it, you're just taking these memories or the absence of appreciation or the outright anger, disappointment or something, history, and you're taking it in and it's affecting your health, your children's health, and then you're transmitting it to your great-grandchildren 2 more generations into the future. Wow. So now we're talking about therapies. Should we talk about supplements? Should we talk about herbal medicine? Should we talk about fasting? Should we talk about vibrational remedies, flower essences, and colors and sounds and postures and mantras? We could, because everything is a therapy. Everything is a therapy. Every posture, every hand mudra is a therapy. But perhaps the most significant of all the therapies would be your feelings, known or unknown to you. So if you don't really have any feeling at all for your mother's mother, how would you even access the connection to her, which is your grandmother, your great-grandmother? So on the father's side, if you don't really like your father, you hate the bastard because he was mean to your mother, then you've just shut off your ability to access your grandfather. Did you get that? You want to have a healthy family, but you can't hate your own father. Doesn't work. You can't have a healthy access to what we call emotional physical fire if you have a pattern of resentment towards your grandfather. So for example, maybe you never met your grandfather, your father's father, but your father hated him because he was a terrible man, and that's all you heard was how terrible the grandfather was. You just closed down your own ability to utilize the skill sets, abilities, innate attributes available to you in your father's father. Now, father's father represents purpose, passion, fire, blood, adrenals, action, success, sports. So if someone's interested in relationships, for example, and everyone is at some level, there's no way you can have a healthy relationship with anyone and hate your father. It's not possible. There's no way you can have a healthy relationship with other people and have an active hatred of your grandfather. Because all you're going to do is attract people who automatically trigger every feeling that you're in denial of. So for me, this is what the iris is about. We went through the sectors. I showed you some of the sector positions. We talked about how those sectors are lateral and medial, lower lateral, upper medial, and so on and so on. All the patterns of the iris are about your family tree. For you to have access to all of the parts of your family is to increase the vitality of the life force running through you. If you could, you would turn on your natural appreciation and gratitude for all 14 of them. Now, I just slipped in 2 more because there are 12 grandparents, but you can't get there without 2 parents, 14. Now, you can say, no, I have my mother. That my father was just a terrible man. I have my mother. Oh, I love my mother. No, sorry, doesn't work that way. Your mother married him. You might say, I love my mother, but I hate my father. No, she married him. She brought him to you. So any feeling that you have about your mother is influenced by your feelings about your father. So I'm sorry, you won't be done with your father or your mother for the rest of your life. I know that's bad news to most psychologists who want to talk you out of it in a few hours. Sorry, you won't be done with your father and your mother for the rest of your life. You'll be constantly increasing the access to feelings through your mother's side of the family. And there are wonderfully beautiful attributes, skill sets associated with your mother's family. You won't be done with your mother's family because you'll be dealing with the divine feminine eventually and how you see yourself. Very important, your mother's family. Your father's family, same thing. You won't be done with your father and your feelings about masculinity and your feelings about gender and your feelings about success and authority and government, animals and religion and aliens. You won't be done with your feelings about masculinity for the rest of your life. You're only practicing it here. That's all you're doing. This is life in the physical body is just a transition period between here and somewhere else. You're not intended to live here forever. That's why civilizations collapse. You're not supposed to stay here. You go on. But the practice of how you're living here determines the quality of where you go. Most of you already know that. So my primary therapy is to help people identify their family tree. Then go ahead, add in all the nutrition that you want. Yes, nutrition is important. And if you could, yeah, vegan diet is probably the best. I don't really want to do it right now. I have unresolved issues. I still like an occasional hamburger. I still like an occasional piece of fish. But eventually, yeah, the vegan diet's probably the best. And you can get there gradually. So my suggestion is take care of the diet, add all the supplements in, but remind people exercise, study of something, the interest to grow in something, the love of discovery is pretty much what a jewel pattern does. So on a scale of 1 to 100, how would you measure your own passion for the love of truth? That, you don't have to tell me. I can't hear you. But you can hear yourself on a scale from 1 to 100. How much do you love truth? I mean, passionately. Discovery. And is your discovery limited to the physical sciences of the intellectual things that can be confirmed? Or maybe you would consider that it's possible to have a love of truth from a divine perspective. On a scale from 1 to 100, do you have a passion for learning from a divine perspective the truth about the iris, the birth order, your family, nature, health, vitality? That's really what RAYID's about. It's about the discovery of the meaning of all of this and how to apply it. So these are just small examples, but I'm also challenging you to consider the importance. Oh, of which one, you say? Well, let's just pick one. Mother's father's mother. For you Brazilians, it's bisavô, mãe de pai de mãe. If I did that correctly, mãe de pai de mãe, or mother's father's mother, if you do it in English. Now that corresponds to your relationship to your mother. Very important. If you're going to climb a ladder, you have to climb the first ladder first. First part first, right? First rung of the ladder, right? So your relationship to your mother and your mother's relationship to her father is oftentimes the lung meridian. That's the breath line. Yeah, I know that's important. Breathing is your mother's relationship to her father. And how your grandfather, your mother's father, felt about your mother. That's lung. Are we talking about asthma? Are we talking about allergies? Are we talking about air? Breathing, very important function. Your own relationship to your mother's father. But the one we're talking about is his mother. I know that's, wait. I know you need to catch up, so I'll take a breath. It's you, your mother, your mother's father, his mother. Now, if you think you can get along without your great-grandmother from your mother's side, forget it. She corresponds to your circadian rhythm. your ability to sleep at night. It's all about one grandmother. She regulates serotonin and melatonin. Yes, you can guess which gland that is in the brain or just outside the brain, because the pineal is not actually in the brain. It's outside the brain. So what else does the pineal do? Skin, circadian rhythm, well, happiness, bliss. So, okay, I'll ask you the simple question. Mother's father's mother. On a scale from 1 to 100, how much do you know her? How much do you love her? Now, I'm saying literally, we just increased your appreciation of the overall function of one great grandmother that rules your circadian rhythm at night. She gives birth to the breath and the lung meridian, your grandfather, your mother's father, and she gave birth to your mother, who now biochemically is infused with you. So your great grandmother is very, very important. Oh, by the way, could you imagine a basket of flowers on the top of your head? No, we're just talking about imagination, right? Could you imagine a basket of really colorful flowers on the top of your head? And just above that is stars and snow falling? I just introduced you to your great grandmother. She corresponds with flowers in the brain. So some people, they like ayahuasca and psilocybin because they like flowers in the brain, and they go, oh, see all the pretty images? See all the pretty images? See all the pretty colors? You like those pretty colors, do you? You like that DMT stuff in the brain? Well, on a scale from 1 to 100, how much do you love the DMT grandmother? You like her now? So if you increase your appreciation of your great grandmother, you're actually beginning to take the colorful images in your brain and open them to something higher. You want to stay in the biochemical range the rest of your life? I wouldn't recommend that. You like MDMA, you like all the other stuff, you like LSD, you like, really? You want to stay biochemically locked on the inside of your brain the whole time? Oh, come on. You can go higher by the loving appreciation that the great grandmother on your mother's side of the family represents pristine silence. Pristine silence. That's a great grandmother. So on a scale from 1 to 100, did we get you up to a 1.5? Because maybe that's where I am. I'm around 1.5 to 1.8. And I've been doing this a very long time because she's a very big grandmother. It's called the divine feminine. And she is the capacity for you to be able to receive divine grace through the presence of the Holy Spirit and the ability to be able to feel. Shoo! Would you call that an important function for family? You want your kids to be happy? Go do that one. And they'll be happier. So you have mother's mother's mother, the opening of the heart. You have father's father's father, the giving of the heart. You like friends? That's number 4. Fraternal experience of giving love, fraternal love. Why is fraternal love so important? It's the love that you can choose to circulate. Familial love, nah, you don't have much choice about that. Well, you do. You can bring familial love into fraternal love if you practice it, but most people, they have a very difficult time with their own family. You know what ultimately kills you in the long run? Sorry, it's your family. I don't mean to be mean, but the epigenetic crystallization from your family tree triggers the diseases that will cause a stroke, a heart attack, a cancer. These are from unresolved emotions in your family tree. I'm suggesting that if you go to all 12 of the grandparents and you identify with your own feelings about your parents, you are rapidly taking feelings from all of your family tree and processing it. Now, who is actually responsible for everything that happens to you? Your parents? Yeah, true. It is your parents, typically up to the age of 8, and then theoretically you're supposed to take over by then, which people do whether they know it or not, because up to the age of 8, the brain is somewhat like jello and there is an opening, but after the age of 8, it's harder again. Yes, your parents are responsible for what happens to you under the age of 8. Now, most of you are not age 8 anymore. So who's actually responsible for a disease you have today or tomorrow? Who's responsible for the relationships that you attract? You are. Now, I know it's a difficult challenge, but on a scale from 1 to 100, what percentage of responsibility do you hold within yourself for everything that happens to you in body, in mind, in spirit, everything that happens in the future? Is it 3%, 12%? I'm going to suggest you might consider at least considering 100%. That 100% of everything that's going to happen to you now and in the future is associated with your feelings and your willingness to accept the opportunity. Sometimes I say opportunity rather than responsibility, which is true. The opportunity to open up all of the skill sets of your own soul corresponding to your family tree, all mirrored by these symbologies in nature and time. Therapies, yes. Eat well, do your exercises, be creative, learn, grow. Yes, do all those things. Do your vibrational medicines, do all the colors and sounds and things that you can think of. Do them all. But learn the skill sets of what it feels like to be a soul. This is what Rayid therapy is really like. If you're curious about how this works, whether it's Rayid Facebook International, you can look at that, or Rayid Facebook Brazil, you can look at that. You can look at what it is like to be able to incorporate the experiences of all the feelings in your family tree in a healthy, loving, responsible way every day. Now, this is basic Rayid therapy. I know it's a lot to consider. It may not have been what you were expecting, but it is something that will definitely help you. So you can do the same test yourself on a scale from 1 to 100. How much do you know and love yourself? That's all we have for today. Thanks for coming. See you again someday.